Hey there! Before we dive in, just a quick favour to ask. If you're enjoying the show, don't be shellfish. Please take a moment to rate and review it wherever you're listening. It helps more people find us in the big blue ocean of podcasts. You can also support us by hitting that follow or subscribe button, following us on Instagram at Word on the Reef Podcast, and sharing the podcast link with a friend who might love it too. Thanks so much. Now let's get into today's episode. Before we start this episode, I'd just like to acknowledge the Gimoy Walluwarra Yidinji people and the Irukandji people on whose land this podcast is recorded, as well as the other 70 traditional owner groups whose sea country makes up the Great Barrier Reef, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Good morning and welcome to Word on the Reef. I'm your host, diver and marine conservationist Tanya Murphy. And joining me, as always, is Cairns Aquarium's marine educator and fish whisperer, Brett Goodban.
Good morning. Hope everyone had a great week.
Now, Brett, did you know some of our marine fish are leading double lives?
Oh, yeah.
That's right, they want the best of both worlds, saltwater and freshwater. So one minute they're living the dream on a beautiful coral reef, next minute they've decided they need a tree change and they're swimming up into our rivers. I mean, if these fish have the capacity to live in saltwater, they have the whole ocean to swim in.
Yeah, they got better choice for holidays.
So why do they swim upriver? What are they doing there? And importantly, what happens when humans build dams, causeways and other watery traffic jams that block these fish from finishing their migration missions? To answer these burning questions, our guest today is fish ecologist Sean Georgeson. He's worked across Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand, researching fish migration and advocating for healthier rivers and reefs. And now he's about to set sail on a wind-powered voyage across the world to raise awareness about coral conservation and climate change.
Nice.
Good morning, Sean. Welcome to Word on the Reef.
Morning, Tanya. Morning, Brett.
Hey, Sean. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Great to have you on the show.
Cheers, guys.
Now, I have to confess that most of my fish experience has been with the flashy coral reef types, the ones with fabulous colours who have probably zero interest in swimming up into muddy crocodile inhabited rivers. But I know that if we want to protect our fish species, we've got to understand the whole picture, and that includes freshwater. So, Sean, what made you so passionate about freshwater fish?
Well, Tanya, I mean, look, starting out like you, I was also really interested in marine ecology, coral reefs and all of that amazing stuff. But I guess it's a circumstantial thing. I did my university degree, and the first role I was offered was a role down in Palmerston North in New Zealand. And basically what our role was to remediate barriers to fish passage like culverts, dams and weirs, mainly the culverts, to actually preserve fish passage for those obligate species that require to spend part of their life in freshwater and saltwater. So, I mean, that was very fulfilling work. It was very tangible. You could see how much habitat you're actually freeing up for these amazing species. Yeah. And I think that actually really made me appreciate the freshwater side of things. Less focus on those giant, charismatic, colourful fish, and also just, getting a bit of an insight to how important and how cool these smaller and less well-known fish are that frequent freshwater systems as well.
The in-water freshwater heroes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Small, nondescript brown fish matter as well.
Yeah.
They're all important. And I suppose the listeners are detecting a bit of an accent from you.
Yes.
You want to tell us about your background?
I've undertook a bit of my own migration. I was born in Liverpool. Home of the Beatles, home of the best football team in the world. And I was 7 years old, moved to New Zealand in 2005. And I did all of my study, all my high school, all my university in Aotearoa. Such an amazing place to grow up, and I think it really made me appreciate the natural world a bit more. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Liverpool, but surrounded by concrete jungle and then surrounded by forest, rivers and beautiful lakes, it's you're a bit spoiled, and I appreciate my parents for actually giving me the opportunity and taking me to New Zealand. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
I appreciate their efforts as well,
Yes.
bringing you closer to us. Yeah, so I've seen some photos of you carrying out that research in freshwater creeks in New Zealand. And from what I know from visiting New Zealand, the freshwater creeks are absolutely frigid. And you were standing in the water with a scoop net, and your colleague had a backpack on that looked like something out of Ghostbusters. What's going on there?
Okay, so there I was with Olivia and Olivia, two of my favourite colleagues ever, and we were doing something called electrofishing. So basically it is a monitoring technique we use to actually capture and identify fish and get an idea for the abundance, the diversity in those waterways. So how it works is you've got a wand, which is an anode, and then you've got a tail which comes out of the backpack that's got batteries in it. And basically that completes the electric circuit, and it basically forces the fish through muscular contractions to swim towards the electric current. And you can just scoop them up with a net. And then, they stay stunned for a little while. The longer fish, like eels and stuff, tend to get stunned a little bit more harshly because they're actually crossing a larger electrical gradient. But they stay stunned for a little while, measure them, so you can actually get an understanding for population dynamics like size and size distribution and things like that. Yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. So I really enjoyed that work, and they recover. They usually recover fully.
Well, that's good. Wow.
All right, Flight Centre, New Zealand, I'm coming next time. I want to do this.
Oh, it's so cool.
Join a research expedition to wave the magic wand. It's literally like a magic wand. It actually makes the fish swim towards it. How cool is that? It is cheating, though.
I can just see this cartoon thing right now of them all just, don't swim towards the light.
I'll add one thing. You wouldn't see people doing as much backpack electrofishing here in Queensland considering all the crocodiles. So we use boats here in Queensland for electrofishing.
Wow, it sounds like a cool new genre of music or something, but...
Electrofishing.
Does it work for anything else? Like, I mean, they say there's plenty of fish in the sea. Can you use this electric wand to magically attract love into your life?
Well, hey, I mean, I think we all wish it was that easy, but...
As a shark educator, I can just see all kinds of problems with this. Don't be doing that out there.
Exactly, and in salt water, the conductivity, it would just, it's a bit of a mess.
No.
And your fieldwork photos also show some more about the less glamorous side of fish biology, wading in freezing cold rivers, but also up to your elbows in swamp mud. What was happening in that picture?
Okay, so that was actually me conducting some monitoring of brown mudfish populations. So brown mudfish, they are a descendant of migratory fish. They are no longer migratory. They live in wetlands. And they actually have a process called estivation where they live underground in little burrows during the dry season in summer. Yep. And then they come out and forage and breed in the wet season when it rains. There was only a few sites in the North Island where they were actually still living, and I was actually searching for more sites where they still existed, and managed to find a small juvenile at that site.
Oh, how cool.
So it indicates that, there are active adults breeding in that site, and that population is still present.
So you had to sort of stick your hand elbow deep into mud to try and pull out a fish.
We actually use cat biscuits to attract them.
Stop it.
Yeah, it's true. They love cat biscuits.
Well, it makes sense because cat biscuits have fish in them, right? So
yeah, I guess, yeah. So we use these little traps called G-minnow traps, and it lets the fish in, but doesn't let them back out again. So they're attracted to those cat biscuits, and they're stuck in the trap.
Tomorrow, Sunday, when I get to work, I'm just going to shake a bag of whiskers in front of the reef monster truck, see if the catfish come over.
I love that they are appropriately named as brown mudfish.
Yeah, we even called it mud fishing. Fishing for mudfish.
Wow.
Makes sense.
Keep it simple.
Well, that's definitely not the most glamorous sounding fish, but I'm glad that you found that population's still thriving. Save the mudfish.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so now let's talk about some of the fish species around this area. You've been working here in Cairns for, is it a couple of years now?
Yeah, I moved here in 2023, start of 2023.
Yeah, so what sort of things have you been working on here?
Well, when I first moved here, I became a fisheries biologist. So I was working with Department of Primary Industries, they used to be called Department of Fisheries. And I was working in impact assessment. So we were assessing things like development of propositions for culverts, dams, bridges, things like that. And my job was to make sure that they considered fish passage requirements and ensured that fish were able to migrate and complete their life cycles and do all of their important stuff.
We'll talk a bit about how that works with the culverts and the dams and things in a bit. But first, tell us, what are some examples of marine fish species around here which spend part of their life in freshwater systems.
Yeah, that's an interesting paradigm, that, because we call them marine species, right? But they're just as much freshwater species in a lot of cases. So, big fish that comes to mind is barramundi. They spend a lot of time out in saltwater. They mate, reproduce, and then juveniles will spend a lot of time in freshwater systems. They'll grow maturity. They're born as males. Some will eventually become females. And then once they're big enough, they will go back to the ocean and, reproduce, and the cycle will continue.
They would probably mainly be considered a freshwater fish, maybe?
I would say barramundi would be more considered marine species, because they can spend their entire lives in saltwater if they need to.
It's sort of like a choice that they need to.
Yeah, exactly. But the freshwater environment affords them a huge advantage in a lot of ways. So it can reduce competition between the barramundi. It can give them a bit of shelter from the diverse amount of predators that you get in marine environments. You're probably thinking, well, you're trying to avoid predators. Why would you go into croc-infested waters?
Croc-inhabited.
That's a very good distinction, actually. But juvenile barramundi, I think there's a large slew of animals that can eat them in a marine environment. But when it gets to a freshwater environment, they've probably got a lot better chance and a lot more habitat complexity to avoid crocodiles and things like that. So
they can hide in the mangrove roots and things.
Exactly. And mangrove jack do exactly the same thing, and use estuarine environments and lower lying freshwater systems to actually use as a nursery ground. And then when they grow up, they go to seagrass meadows and eventually go out to the reefs. It's all super important and super interconnected. But those fish mainly do it optionally. So I think that's called facultative diadromy, and we can get into some more of those scientific terms in a sec if you...
Yeah, well, while you're on that topic, let's discuss it now. What is I heard you just say it. Slow it down for everyone. What is that scientific word for a fish that spends time in both freshwater and saltwater?
Yes, so that is diadromy. And as you said, the fish requires or can spend time in saltwater and freshwater. And there's a bunch of different types of diadromy. So you've got barramundi, they do the catadromy. They're catadromous fish. So that means they start life in saltwater, spend a bunch of time in freshwater to grow up, and then end up in saltwater again. And you've also got anadromy, and I would say there are far less examples of anadromous fish in Queensland. That's a fish that starts life in freshwater, goes to saltwater, and then comes back to freshwater later in life. A good example of that is a New Zealand lamprey. As juveniles, they're not parasitic. They'll filter feed, and they'll use sediments to get the nutrients. And when they grow large enough, they'll actually go out to the ocean to reproduce, very similar to salmon. And as adults, they'll come back upstream, they'll spawn, and then they'll die, and the cycle repeats, and that's anadromy.
It's a highway.
Yes.
It's a super highway.
Anyone who's nerdy and wants to remember the terms, so diadromous can live in both salt and freshwater, and catadromous fish start in fresh and go to salt.
Salt, fresh, salt.
Salt, fresh, salt. Okay.
Yeah, that's catadromous.
Yeah, so you mentioned the barramundi and the mangrove jack. That's a couple of species that a lot of people in Far North Queensland are familiar with. I've seen mangrove jack when I've been out at more reef snorkeling, but I don't think I've seen a barramundi that far out. Is that just because I'm not looking hard enough, or they don't go that far out?
No.
So barramundi, look, they like the ability to go to freshwater and saltwater. They like their coastal areas, and they've got a lot of adaptations that allow them to do that. So they've got things called chloride cells in their gills, and that actually allows them to regulate ions like salt and sodium, and actually it gives them a lot of flexibility in where they can live, and that's a huge advantage to a fish like that. So typically they don't need to go out that far. They can spend a lot of the time in that coastal region.
So they've got a sort of a onboard desalination facility.
Osmo regulation. They can choose to live in fresh and salt water.
Cool. Okay. And so with the mangrove jacks, do they have any cool adaptations for switching?
Look, they also have chloride cells because they have to spend time in estuarine. Well, they can spend time in estuarine situations where salinity is less. So when you've got mixed water, it's called brackish water. And they can spend time near mangroves and actually forage for small crustaceans and avoid predators that way. So a lot of their adaptations are behavioral, using mangroves and that estuarine region to actually grow up and use that as a nursery and avoid predation.
This is all really illustrating that connectivity that we often talk about on the show, how everything's connected. So clearing of mangroves, because I think historically people have been like, well, this is a mosquito infested muddy swamp, let's get rid of it so we can put a beautiful resort here.
No.
But
well, it's a giant nursery ground.
Yeah, it's so important for all those species that has a flow-on impact to the reef. So, Brett, I know you've got several diadromous fish species in your River Monsters tank at the Cairns Aquarium.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about them?
Yeah, so anyone that's been to the Cairns Aquarium will know that we're set up on that importance of that journey from the Gulf Savannah to the Great Barrier Reef. It all starts up there. Most people will come in and expect to see sharks straight away, but they're confronted by the largest freshwater tank in Australia. And it's full of all the superheroes, all the fish that don't get the highlights, right? And we have barras in there, obviously, so that's a big chat for us, is to talk about the barramundi and their life cycle, because that'll end up affecting the Great Barrier Reef if they don't have that cycle. We've got Neil, the Australian longfin eel, who, for commitment's sake, will spend 50 years in freshwater, but finally going on to Finder and heading out to the reef and finding himself a lady. I mean, that's commitment.
Wow, they don't reproduce until as late as 50?
No, they'll wait. Yeah, he just has a bit of time on the golf course before he commits.
They're not ready to settle. They're waiting for the perfect moment.
Yeah, we got the jacks in there, but it's really important, and that's why it's so cool to have you on the show. It's just so important to highlight that importance of that journey. Yep. We cannot block that highway. It just can't happen. No. And to see people, their perception of barramundis change after my shows, when I get them to sit there for 2 minutes and try and point out the only female barramundi in the tank, when I know there isn't. They're all boys, and there's fishing experts and everyone's standing there go, I know it's that one or it's that one. And I just stand there and go, right, you all done? They go, yeah, we know which one it is. I said, you're all wrong. They're all boys because they're born male, and their face just drops. They're like, hang on, what? And then you go through that whole cycle, and then that sets the scene for the rest of it, right? We've got to highlight that up there. It's so important.
We've talked about a few things throughout this series to do with fish changing their sex in their life cycle. So with the barra, they're all born male. Is that right?
All boys. And it's a numbers game too, right? So your female barra's not going to pop out 10 eggs during the wet season because she knows there's a zero chance of any going to survive. So it's well over 30 million a season that they'll pop out. So even if, 1% survive, that provides food for the other babies in the mangroves. So that wet season that we get when that Gulf Savannah fills up and all that water flow heads down, that's when the party happens. The highway opens. For the fish in the wet season, they're off to Flight Centre. They're booking their holidays. They're going to visit Auntie Ethel at Green Island. They're doing what they have, babies, whatever. It's party time. And then just before the monsoon and the wet season ends and that highway starts to close, all the little fish go, we got to get out of here. I don't like the mangroves in the dry season because the crocs are running out of things to... So they all start heading up. So you have this journey backwards and forwards. It's a super highway. It's so cool. It
is really cool. I really enjoyed that River Monsters show at the Cairns Aquarium when I was last there.
Yeah.
I'll have to come back again. It's been a couple of years, but it's such a cool
yeah, come on in, mate. I'll show you around.
And so, Sean, what other reasons are there why it's so important for these diadromous species of fish to be able to migrate between saltwater and freshwater and for the highways to stay open?
Well, when it comes to a lot of these species, they actually, for barramundi, for example, if they end up stuck in a freshwater environment, they won't be able to reproduce. They actually require a certain level of salinity in the water that causes them to undergo some physiological changes and actually be able to reproduce. So if you end up with a bunch of fish stuck in a riverway and a dam gets built and there's no consideration for that downstream migration, then all of those fish aren't actually going to be able to reproduce, and you're going to lose a huge genetic sample. And then you've got the upstream migration. So fish like empire gudgeons. So they actually require, their eggs require salinity to hatch. So they'll start life as eggs and swim upstream. So they're not very good swimmers, like compared to a lot of other fish. They're far better than me. But if a thing like a culvert has got, let's say you've got a 10-meter culvert with no breaks, no baffles, no resting zones, a relatively poor swimming fish like an empire gudgeon is going to have a very difficult time getting upstream, and it's going to therefore have a very hard time completing its life cycle.
That's depressing. Just imagine they've swum however far that they've already swam, and then it's just, this is the end of your journey. It ends here.
It's the flow-on, pardon the pun, it's the flow-on effect from that, isn't it? Like, the barra during their season in the mangroves, they're prolific hunters, aren't they? They just eat everything. I mean, they'll even eat baby saltwater crocodiles.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they're just keeping that cycle going. They're keeping it clean, and they're doing what they have to do. And then when you start putting in highway closure signs, so to speak,
You can just imagine the fish gets there and they're like, oh, roadworks again.
Yeah, the theme park's shut for this season. All right, kids, let's go back to the mangroves. Come on.
No kids, that's the problem.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah.
Empire gudgeons.
Yes.
I can't picture it. What do they look like?
Very, they're quite colourful. They've got a lot of red on them.
Are they the mouth brooder ones? Because I know that some of the gudgeons are mouth brooders. A lot of those freshwater ones are mouth brooders. The dad holds the babies in the mouth.
Yeah.
Snakehead gudgeons do.
Speaking of unorthodox parenting methods.
Have babies in your mouth.
Yeah.
Sorry if anyone's having breakfast.
Just to keep them safe from predators.
Yep.
And, if they play up, you can just swallow them, I guess.
I guess if you need a snack.
We've just been talking about some amazing fish species that spend part of their life in freshwater and part of their life in saltwater, and how important it is for them to be able to migrate between the two, keeping those rivers and creeks open for them to pass through. We were just talking about a species called empire gudgeons as an example, and during the ad break, Sean showed us a picture of an empire gudgeon, and they're absolutely gorgeous.
Spectacular.
They're little red fish with electric blue fringe on
we
its
really need to look after them.
They're trying to look as fancy as they can for the ladies.
I was impressed.
There you go.
Yeah.
Worked.
Yeah, it worked. So let's talk about the threats now, Sean. What are the main threats facing these types of diadromous fish?
I'd say waterway barrier works are a huge one. Things like culverts, things like weirs, things like dams. But obviously the threats don't end at those physical barriers. I think it's important that we look after water quality. So when you get algal blooms and anoxic zones, that can actually be a bit of a barrier for a lot of fish as well. What I want to touch on as well is sedimentation. Lots of sediment getting into waterways can actually smother eggs in that intertidal estuarine zone. And it can also smother plants which certain species require to lay their eggs upon. I'll give you a New Zealand example. There's a species of galaxid related to the brown mudfish I talked about earlier that actually requires certain native species to actually lay their eggs on the stem of, and then they will get washed out to the ocean during flood. So if those plants have been smothered and those plants don't exist because there's a bunch of sediment build up, those fish don't have anywhere to lay their eggs. So sedimentation in waterways can actually be a huge issue to diadromous fish as well, or any fish that require certain vegetation or certain conditions on the banks of rivers to actually lay their eggs. There's so many potential threats. It's difficult to list them all, but I would say the main one are those waterway barrier works. If those fish can't migrate upstream and back down again, then if they can't complete their life cycles, then they're at risk.
That's right. Obviously, our weather systems are changing. Climate change is affecting it. And we had Cyclone Jasper a couple of years ago that just dumped an ungodly amount of water up on the Gulf Savannah.
And mud.
And mud and sediment. This is something else that we're going to have to deal with. Our critters are going to have to deal with, and we're going to have to help them with, is when you have that volume. I mean, that was just insane, that amount of sediment and water that came down.
Climate change is obviously causing a lot of our weather systems to become a lot more unpredictable, a lot more intense. And look, if the frequency of those storm events and those real strong wet seasons increases, that's going to have a huge impact on our migratory fish. A lot of fish like barramundi like to migrate during drier seasons instead of those wet seasons because it offers really good foraging grounds. So almost definitely, I would say climate change will be a huge threat towards fish and diadromous fish and a lot of other animals as well. Yeah,
the flooding from Cyclone Jasper dumped sediment and mud all over the corals of Low Isles and
it was just
the Franklin Isles, Fitzroy Island. So it sort of smothered a bunch of coral, but it also smothers seagrass beds, which turtles and dugongs depend on to eat. But then now you're sort of opening up to us that idea that it's also smothering the river plants and the eggs of the fish as well. So the impacts are very far-reaching, and of course, it's a river, it's supposed to flood, but some of the floods that we're having nowadays are some of the more severe and perhaps more frequent because of climate change. So that's going to be another reason why our fishy friends need a little bit of extra assistance. So speaking of that, I suppose there's different solutions to each thing. So in relation to keeping the culverts and dams from impacting the fish, what are the main solutions that are being employed for that?
So there's been a lot of legislative things come in over the last 20 or so years, which actually require bridges and culverts and any potential waterway barrier works to go through development approval processes, or they can be accepted development. So my advice to anybody that is considering what could be a waterway barrier work, whether that's a culvert or a bridge or anything that goes into the water, I would seek expert advice from the cool guys I work for at DPI to have a conversation about what they can do to minimize their impact and actually stay compliant with the current regulations in place. So things like installing baffles on your culverts.
What's a baffle?
So a baffle is it can be anything that breaks the water flow, basically. So in New Zealand, we use these things called flexi baffles, which you could put along the bottom of a culvert, and it would actually cause a zone of low flow. And that will give fish an opportunity to rest and then use their burst swimming to get to the next baffle, up to the next baffle. It's kind of like a ladder, and eventually get upstream of the culvert. Whereas if it was just the culvert with that fast laminar flow, because culverts tend to have a lot of water go through them in a more narrow way than the river itself. That water is usually faster. So a lot of fish, even though they're quite fast at burst swimming, they can't sustain that for 10 meters.
No, so they've gone from an afternoon stroll after work to get to where they want to go, to climbing Everest.
Exactly.
It just can't happen that way.
Well, sometimes I go for a swim in my local creek, and when you try to swim upstream in a narrow spot, it's like you're going nowhere, so you're just swimming.
Maybe we should start a fish training boot camp and help the fish get up culverts that way.
Don't give me ideas, mate. My mind's too fertile for that.
No. So those baffles, they're a huge help. They actually... a fish would have got halfway off the culvert and then got washed back down again, whereas those baffles actually give them a lot of second chances.
Right.
I've never seen that happening, but it sounds heartbreaking. Like watching a fish just swimming halfway and then getting washed back again, and then trying to do it again and again.
Exactly.
That's the beauty of this show, right? We're the voice of the critters. This is what's going on, and people are imagining it in their head, these poor little fish going, I can't do it, Dory, I just can't keep swimming, mate. And I need to go faster.
Can't keep swimming. And then you've got these giant predators like eels and barra that are waiting at the bottom of these culverts to actually eat all these smaller fish that can't get to the safe refuges upstream.
Too heartbreaking.
It's tough. Sometimes
do culverts, can they have pipes underneath them?
I've not seen that, but I'm sure there's ways around that. I would stick to baffles, but it's obviously a case-by-case basis. If the waterway allows for it, if you can enable fish passage to occur, then it's worth a try. But that's why we talk to those experts in the fish passage team. Look, it's a case-by-case basis. In New Zealand, it depends on the type of species that you're actually seeing in that part of the river as well. So there's a species we have in New Zealand called a koaro, and that's able to climb rocks and things like that. And if you've got a perched culvert, which is a culvert that is actually above the water level and is kind of acting like a waterfall, that's going to stop all of those fish from migrating upstream. We actually install ropes. So the fish is actually able to climb that rope up into the culvert and then use baffles to swim up. So
you put a ninja course in.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much.
Muscle spat rope, Australian Ninja Warrior in New Zealand for fish.
That
cool.
is wild. Have you sat there and just watched a fish climbing this rope course?
I've seen fish climb rocks, and I've seen videos of fish climb muscle spat rope.
Climbing fish.
I've just seen them with their little bandanas and their little running shoes on, just climbing up the rope.
They're very colourful as well. They use their fins kind of like legs. In that way,
that's so cool.
So is this how evolution got kick-started, when the fish first learned to walk?
Well, maybe it's the distant cousin of the epaulet shark.
Yeah. So what about dams? Like, they're obviously a bit higher. Can fish get up those?
So we can use things called fish locks or fish elevators, where you've got a chamber that sits in the water that fish are able to swim into, and then that they can actually hoist those up into the
Who
waterways.
hoists it up?
Yeah, it's part of the dam's mechanism. Yeah.
Wait, so it just goes up and down all day?
Yeah, I think it can be remote controlled. There's also
do they just hit the button with their flipper, or
I think it's human control. However, I will get onto something that's really cool. In Holland, I don't know
heard
what
about this.
Yeah. There is I forget the website's name, but there's a camera installed under the water, and if fish are trying to get upstream past this
I've
dam,
seen this. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, go on.
Anyone around the world can push a button that will open the structure and allow fish to swim upstream. So that's a pretty cool way that everyone can get involved. I'll have to find that website and forward it to Tanya so you can
put it
on your page.
I will put it in the show notes on our website.
Yeah,
but they're just taking advantage of the bored people sitting on their phones around the world.
Exactly.
You just sit there watching this camera, and when a fish comes along, you open the gate for them.
Why were you
How
late
nice
back
is
from
that?
lunch? Tony needed to be let in.
There's plenty of ways we can help fish as well, though. You've got weirs, so they're like kind of small dams that are usually used for water retention and irrigation. Now we can install a fish way, which is basically it's a bypass to the weir with baffles in it that goes beside the weir, and you can actually retain the water level if you grade it well enough, and allow fish to get up past the weir while also maintaining the functionality of the weir as well.
It's like a wheelchair ramp for fish or something.
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly. Okay. Yeah.
So this could be another way for people to look at it, right? If you're near a river or a stream, or you're camping or something, and you go and park your chair next to the riverbank, you're just looking at all these little hotels and babies laying eggs on that tree, and that one helps feed them. It's a whole world down there, isn't it?
That's fantastic.
And
you know,
they see it differently.
Yeah.
Then we can expect change, can't we?
Yeah, and when you've not lived in Queensland, the biodiversity here is absolutely amazing. Don't get me wrong, New Zealand's biodiversity is very interesting and very unique. But when I came to Queensland and seeing all of these crazy fish swimming in the water, all of these amazing colours, all these amazing patterns, I was blown away. So yeah, you could totally spend an afternoon just looking at water. Maybe go to your local culvert that's got some baffles in it, and I'm sure you'd be able to see some fish go. But stay crockwise, obviously.
Well, I'll be there with a net trying to help them all get up stream.
One of the real characters we've got in that Billabong tank is Simon the Saratoga.
Okay.
They are just built for high jumping.
Yeah.
What's the human high jump record? I think it's 2.08 metres.
Okay.
And he can do 2.5.
Wow.
So we've hooked him up for the Brisbane Olympics. He's in training at the moment.
Well, if you consider in terms of body lengths, humans can only jump just over their own height, pretty much.
I can probably do a quarter of my height.
Whereas
if I was a fish, I'd need a lot of help.
Yeah,
these
fish
things are
can
incredible.
jump many
they're all
times.
set up for airborne attack. Their eyes are on top. Their mouth faces upward. The outboard motor's at the back.
Yeah.
And they can fly out of the water and steal a bird off a tree.
Is that what they eat?
Yeah, or a frog or insect or something? Can you imagine being a bird and you're just sitting on a tree branch thinking, yeah, this is the life, and you look down and he's coming towards you. You go, hang on a sec, this wasn't in the script.
No.
Saratoga, then, that's
Saratoga.
a fish
Yeah.
I have not thought about or heard of before.
Actually, they were also known as a barramundi before the 1980s.
I can picture the fish, and it's that characteristic mouth shape, isn't it?
Upward facing.
Yeah.
So they're basically sitting under the surface the whole time to feed above the surface. So they'll just shoot straight out like a missile.
Yeah. Oh, you reminded me now of archerfish as well, which actually use those water guns out their mouth to shoot insects and stuff to eat.
Archerfish, the ones that spit the water out onto insects, onto trees to knock their prey in the water.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also known to recognise human faces. And we've got baby ones in there at the moment that have been in there for about 2 months. And every time I walk past, they're all lined up. And I'll look across and they're following me as I walk down. And I look back and they're all in a group at the side of the tank looking at me.
They're ready for a feed.
Yeah, and then they come over and they have a little bit of a look. There's such characters.
Do you see them spouting water at people?
I've seen them spitting.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen them spit in the tank, which is quite hilarious.
Trying to hit the kids on the other side of the glass.
We should do that. We should put them in an open air tank.
Start training them.
Yeah.
Get like a cat toy and try to get them to spout water at it. Wow. So here we were thinking that the coral reef is where all the most fascinating fish hang out. But in our rivers, we've got fish that are spitting water at insects. We've got fish jumping 2 meters out of the water to capture your drone out of the sky.
Yeah, that's it.
Watch out for that.
Yeah,
That'll be a bad day.
We've got fish that can climb ropes, ladders, ramps.
Use elevators.
They can use elevators.
Use the internet.
Oh yeah, so live streaming fish.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, fish cast.
Yes.
I'm absolutely fascinated. And yeah, so guys, make sure you take your mask and snorkel with you to the freshwater creeks of Far North Queensland, obviously upstream away from the crocodile waters.
I take no liability in anybody who goes swimming in inhabited waters.
Safe waters. I've snorkeled at Goldsboro Valley in that river there and seen tons of fish, but I wasn't knowledgeable enough about their species to identify them, but it was really beautiful snorkeling. So hopefully this inspires everyone to get more acquainted with their freshwater fish habitats. Is there any last thoughts about freshwater fish and what people can do to help protect freshwater ecosystems? If anyone out there has been inspired by this to have a bit more concern for freshwater ecosystems?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, obviously first is if you're considering construction in the water, make sure you go through the correct avenues and go to the impact assessment team. I think riparian planting is a huge way we can help.
And that means along riverbanks.
Yeah, along riverbanks. Because obviously if you've got all of these amazing native plants that have vegetation going into the waterways, you're feeding crustaceans and you're also therefore feeding the fish that live in the rivers.
And reducing erosion.
Yeah. So you're reducing erosion and you're also reducing fertilizer runoff from intensive agriculture, which contributes to reducing water quality and transfers to impacting the reef as well. So,
plant trees. Don't cut down trees, especially next to rivers and streams and mangroves.
Also be aware that, we all like to play in creeks and streams and everything up when you're camping up in the Gulf Savannah and build little dams and you see kids out there building all this sort of stuff. Just make sure that they just put it all back when they leave, because you don't want to block their little highway.
Exactly.
Just leave it the way you saw it. Have fun, enjoy it, but make sure you leave it the way it looked.
Treat your environment with respect.
That's right.
100%.
Fabulous messages to finish off this segment. Now, Sean, we're very jealous because you are about to set off on a sailing expedition which will take you halfway around the world. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, of course. So in classic fashion, as a Scouser, I met a now good friend of mine over a pint. His name's Antonio. He's a Spaniard, and he was basically born on a sailing boat.
Wow.
And he's taking part in the Ark Rally, which is an annual event in which a bunch of sailing boats get together and cruise around the world. Antonio was kind enough to invite me onto his boat after a few beers,
pints?
and he still wanted me after the hangover, so that was great for me. But I thought I'd take this as an opportunity to actually make a bit of a story and fundraise for some of the amazing projects happening here in Cairns that are fighting to protect the Great Barrier Reef.
Wow.
So my fundraiser is going to be called, it is called Charting for Change. It's not yet live. I'm hoping to get it up in sometime in August, but I'll be raising funds for citizens of the reef who do the Great Barrier Reef census, Great Barrier Reef Legacy, who are trying to build the first coral biobank and get all of the hard corals in the reef so science can catch up and we can protect that genetic sample. And I'll also be fundraising for Divers for Climate, who are trying to make a united voice of scuba divers for climate action. Yolanda, you've worked with Yolanda, yeah.
Well, everyone that you've mentioned has been on our show or will be on our show.
That's right.
So it's a coalition, right? It's a coalition of coral conservation.
Well, we're on the reef are going to be supporters of the coalition as well. So we're all in this together.
So appreciated, guys. So I'll be sailing out from Darwin, start of September. I think the date is the 9th of September. And I'll be going off to Lombok, Indonesia, and I'm hoping to interview coral conservation initiatives and activists while I travel around the world, and I'm going to be posting that onto my Instagram account, which is coalition_org, and I've got a website now. It's coalition.org, and I will be making a YouTube channel, so everybody wants to check that out. I'm trying to build a bit of a following, and hopefully we can raise some funds for these amazing projects and learn a little bit about coral and the initiatives around the world that are trying to protect coral reefs.
That's so awesome. Well done, buddy.
Thanks, Brett.
That's great.
Yeah, so...
I mean, I'm not jealous at all, and I hope your boat doesn't sink.
Come with me next time.
Remember, you get seasick.
Yeah, I'll take lots of tabs.
I'm jealous, but at least we can follow along on your YouTube and your social media and be part of the adventure.
Yeah, we'll be keeping up to date with it for sure.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Done a fair bit of sailing when I was younger, but it's been a while now, so I'm brushing up on some courses, making sure I can keep myself safe while on the water, because obviously it's a bit of a risky environment out there, so you've really got to do your due diligence, got to do your learnings, and make sure that you get there safe. That's the priority.
Respect the big blue.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got about 3 minutes left.
Yep.
What else would you like to talk about? Have you got parting messages for us about, what the most important takeaway message is that you want people to know about freshwater fish?
Yeah, I would say everything plays its role, and it's so important to be curious and want to learn about the natural world, because things that are seemingly completely unconnected are actually through a very complicated arrangement of circumstances are very, very connected. So, for example, barramundi bringing nutrients from freshwater environments out to marine systems, and then whatever eats that, taking that to the reef as well. It's all connected. So
it's the great circle of life.
Exactly. I think remembering that is crucial. And it's important to protect these amazing systems like coral reefs for our future generations. Over 1.6 billion people rely on coral reefs for their livelihoods, for food, for storm protection. And I think the greatest voice I want to have right now is, obviously it's important to look after our waterways, but it's also let's protect our coral reefs and fight climate change as well, because it's crucial. And I think the future of our species is also reliant on climate action.
Yeah, and that's why I love that you're going around the world on sail power.
Yeah, just makes me so happy. I've been in the game for a long time, and then just hearing amazing stories and what you're doing to help spread that word of our beautiful oceans and nature, it's just heartwarming, mate. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Love it.
So where can people head to find... Oh, you already said that.
Yeah, I'll say it again. I'm happy to plug myself, yeah. So that's, Correlation. So that's CORALITION_ORG, and that's on Instagram. And the website, it's not yet up. It's going to be up over the next week or two, but I'm going to link it to the GoFundMe. So, yeah.
Now, last week you caught me out without a fish joke.
What's your fish joke, Brett, to finish us off?
So,
I'm ready for it.
Okay, what do you call a fish that needs help with its vocals? Auto-tuner.
Oh, no. Well done, Brett.
Yeah, it's the best I could do.
Nice way to finish off the show. So, Sean Georgeson, you're an ecologist specialising in freshwater fish and fish migration and founder of the Coalition. Thank you so much for your awesome work, and thanks for joining us on Word on the Reef today.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, mate. It's been amazing.
And thanks to you, all our listeners, for joining us on Word on the Reef. I'm Tanya Murphy. My co-host is Brett Goodburn, and we will be back next Friday at 10 a.m. with more awesome marine science adventures.
Hey, safe diving.
Best fishes.
Bye.